Welcome to the Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by X2 Comedy. If you're looking to get more out of your Shenandoah Valley experience, then this is the podcast for you. You'll meet interesting people, musicians, and comedians that perform here and find out more about what you can do and see. Whether you live here or plan to visit, listen to explore what makes our unique slice of heaven. Now here's your host, Don Davis Womack.
Hello, Laughers, and welcome to our podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Paul Summers, the owner of the Golden Pony, a renowned restaurant and live music venue located in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Voted best music venue in the Shenandoah Valley by Virginia Living magazine, the Pony is known for its vibrant atmosphere and dedication to showcasing local talent and has become a beloved establishment in the heart of our downtown Harrisonburg. With his passion for music and commitment to supporting the local community, Paul has created a haven for both music enthusiasts and food lovers alike. They offer scratch-made American cuisine featuring weekend brunches and happy hours. Today, we will delve into Paul's journey as an entrepreneur and the story behind the Golden Pony's success. Welcome to the show, Paul. It's great to have you on today.
It's great to be here. I really appreciate the invite and the offer to come and share some of my story.
Yes, this is so exciting. I've been around the Berg for, it's going to be 17 years, I think, this summer, if I've done my math right. I know it's been a little bit. Yes. And I have visited the Pony on several occasions. In fact, it's not a group that's together now, but there was a group of local comedic actors called the Friendly City Comedy Troupe, improv troupe. And we actually filmed a scene down there in the Golden Pony's basement.
Yeah, I remember that now that you mention it.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up and put that link to that comedy sketch in the show notes. And that was a good time. We really appreciate you doing that for us. It's just another way you support local artists in every way that you possibly can. So this is exciting for me to have you on and share you and a part of your story with the Laughers. And I think we should begin with, are you born and raised in Harrisonburg, Virginia?
No, I surprisingly am not a local or native of Harrisonburg. Though I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life. I grew up a lot in California and Arizona and North Carolina and Virginia as well, and lots of different places all around each of those states. Moved around quite a bit for, not being a military brat or anything like that. But originally born in Portsmouth. So most of my Virginia life has been spent in the 757 area code, Portsmouth, Newport News, Chesapeake, and Norfolk. I have a lot of fond memories of riding my skateboard in downtown Norfolk and running from the police when they came to take your skateboard. But yeah, so I came to Harrisonburg in 2000 and left in 2004 after I got my degree at JMU and Blue Ridge, and came back in 2008 after I went to grad school and came back here. My ex-wife's family's from here, and so we kind of just came back around here, and I just started doing a lot of cultural events and arts related things, and started making a lot of connections with people again. And so it feels like home, but I still feel I'm the kind of person I just don't really have anywhere to call home because I just lived in so many different places growing up. And that's the story of where I'm from.
Yeah, a little bit of a nomad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that had to provide a lot of experiences, I think, that feed into what you are doing now. What would you say among what you learned being a nomad and having all those different experiences, what would you say would be the top 2 or 3 things that play in a positive impact on what you do now from those experiences?
I think one thing is just being comfortable around lots of different kinds of people. One of the comments that I feel like I've received a lot over the course of my life is just people kind of marveling. It's like, wow, you can really communicate with anybody. You know, you can go and communicate with these people in this really professional setting, and you can also walk up to these random people on the street and have, you know, equally as interesting conversation with them. So I think, you know, growing up the way that I did, you know, it really put me in just a variety of situations and spaces with just such a vast variety of people that, you know, I don't feel like there's any limitations between me and any other person. And, you know, I think that makes me a very accepting person and somebody that's inspired by people that are different more than I'm ever fearful of them. And so that is something that I value in the vast experiences that I've had growing up.
Yeah, that's really good insight. I like that a lot. Can you tell us more about your professional background and what ultimately inspired you to open the Golden Pony in Harrisonburg?
Well, I kind of, you know, started working in restaurants when I was 16. Shout out to Amory Seafood in Portsmouth. And, you know, awesome. I got a lot of experiences in that kitchen, and, you know, it was great. I loved the social aspects of working in a restaurant immediately. You know, I had a lot of friends that worked there too. And then, you know, I started, you know, considering going to college and ended up going to college. I started at ODU. And so working in restaurants just became a way to make good money because I was supporting myself and to help pay for school. You know, I didn't have to take out a ton of loans because I was paying as I went. I just did my first year at ODU. Then I went to Blue Ridge, which was affordable to just, you know, pay as I went. And then by the time I got to JMU, I got some Pell Grant because I had my son by that time, and I was able to get some good financial aid. But it meant me getting out of college with my undergrad with only $1,800 in debt, which was really quite good. And so, you know, I have the restaurant industry to thank for that, because that's how I supported myself and my family all through college, you know, with the idea of going on to do something else and getting out of the restaurant industry, which obviously I was not successful at doing. But I did teach middle school for 2 years down in Red Springs, North Carolina. And while I was going to grad school at UNC Pembroke, and then I came back here, and because I still had one class to finish at UNC Pembroke, which was a 7-hour drive there and a 7-hour drive back once a week, I wasn't able to teach in Virginia. And so I started working in bars again and started working at the Artful Dodger. And, you know, I'm the kind of person that's like, once I start to do one thing, I start looking for other things to do because I'm kind of a busybody. And, you know, I started coordinating all of the art shows and cultural events and music shows at the Artful Dodger, and started meeting a lot of local artists that way. And then that led to, I ended up leaving the Dodger and starting to work at the Blue Nile as the bar manager. And when the Blue Nile closed, that's what kind of put me in the pocket to, you know, really consider opening something else in the same space and maintaining some of what we created at the Blue Nile that I think a lot of people loved and cared about.
Yeah, from what I understand, the Blue Nile was a big place or venue for people to enjoy music. So when we lost we lost that hub.
Yeah. And, you know, it had done a lot before that point. You know, they were there for 6 years. And, you know, of course, the Arefaine family comes from Ethiopia. The parents work and Hami came in the 70s from Ethiopia after the civil war there, and just a lot of, you know, turmoil and unrest. They came here, started lives, had 3 daughters, had professional careers. And then as they got a little bit older and their daughters were getting older, they wanted to start an Ethiopian restaurant because they've been doing Ethiopian food at the International Festival, if you're familiar with that, which is just the best festival, hands down. I feel like that happens in Harrisonburg because the food is always amazing. The one of my favorite musicians is the guy that plays the Peruvian flutes at the International Festival. It's just like, I mean, he is like Jimi Hendrix with this thing. It's incredible to watch. And so they did their food there, and a lot of people encouraged them to open their own restaurant. They ended up opening a place over by EMU campus, and then they were there for a couple of years. And then I think it was Downtown Renaissance really encouraged them to come to downtown. And so they started looking at properties downtown, found this building, and it was it had been in disrepair for many years. And so it got a big facelift, and they were a big part of that. And, they were able to kind of pick and choose how the space was created. And one of the pivotal things that they did was decided to make the downstairs into a usable space, because previously it had just been a dirt floor. And so by making that basement inhabitable, that's what opened up the opportunity for the live music that they would then foster, which is also really interesting, because out of all the businesses in Harrisonburg that are owned by U.S. born people, none of them seemed to be very comfortable with a lot of the experimental music and heavy music and hip hop music that would happen at the Blue Nile. And so there was really nowhere for those kinds of shows to happen in any sort of like business environment. You would have them in a basement at a house, or like what they call a show house, which is, a house where there's like a history of having live music, but you would never see that kind of music anywhere out in public. And so the Arefaine's, not being fans of heavy music or, weird experimental music, that's just not their thing. But their thing was that they were really, really open to anybody exploring their own creativity and just making stuff. And so, it's like the impact that some of this music would have on your average US person, there was like a lot of negativity to it. Whereas, these people from Ethiopia, they're just like, do whatever it is that you want here. And so they really fostered that transition of a lot of that music that, now you can see bands like that at Restless Moons. You can see them at Clementine. You can see them here, obviously. But before the Blue Nile, there was just nowhere that was doing those shows out in public. And in fact, there was a lot of negative perspectives on those kinds of shows, and with hip hop being, a lot of, the idea that a lot of criminal activity would happen around a hip hop show, which, one thing, if we've proven nothing else, we've proven that after all of these 8 years of, just a tremendous amount of hip hop shows I don't think we've even had a fist fight at any of them. It's that was one of the biggest warnings that we got before we opened was it's like, don't have, whatever you do, don't do any hip hop shows. And it's just like, we've been doing hip hop shows at the Blue Nile for a long time, quite peacefully, in fact. And so that was fun to shift perspectives for some people. Other people, I think they'll just always feel like that's the case with that genre of music for reasons that I think are very unfortunate and racist. But, the Arefaines, they were just open to anything happening that was the result of people making art. They just had a trust in that process, which I think is beautiful and, is relative to the community and cultures that they came from. Because like I said, it wasn't something that you found around here until they made it happen here. And so that is a way that they really changed the shape of live music in downtown Harrisonburg tremendously. And I think a lot of people know that. I think a lot of people don't fully know that because, now we've been here in the spot for 8 years. So, the Blue Nile isn't as, at the forefront of people's experiences. And, some people coming to shows now, they're like, I was 12 when the Blue Nile closed, and so, they never had a chance to come to a show here. But that was, a big reason why why I wanted to do what we've done here was to continue that tradition, because I knew how important it was for the local community and for the culture of Harrisonburg, and for my life and the life of my friends and loved ones.
Yeah, that is a way that you're keeping on with that tradition. And also visually, you have kept some elements from the Blue Nile in the existing space, which was once shared by the Blue Nile and now is the Golden Pony. Can you share with the laughers some of those elements that you kept? So even if they visited the Golden Pony before, they may not have noticed. And if they're coming for the first time, they can be looking for it. So can you share with us those features?
Yeah. One thing immediately that comes to mind is the Nile Nachos, which was an item on the Blue Nile's menu. And the Blue Nile served, incredible traditional Ethiopian food. And then they had a couple fusion items like the Nile Nachos, where it was, obviously a blend of different cultures. But the flavor profile of the Nile Nachos was what was unique. And it's made with this bearberry spice that makes this tomato sauce that's called wat sauce. And so that's what we use on the Nile Nachos. And so when you taste it, it's immediately very distinctive and delicious. And we've had that on our menu the entire life of the Golden Pony. It's just kind of one of those sacred things that I think, a lot of people really appreciate, whether they know where it comes from or not. But certainly for the ones that know where it comes from, it's a very important piece of what we do. Then visually, by the downstairs doors, as you're exiting the building, there are 4 Ethiopian cherubs that are facing the inside, just to the left of the doors as you're walking out. And they're beautiful. And it's a traditional iconography that's recreated throughout Ethiopian artwork and certainly in chapels and stuff, especially where, the ceilings of these Ethiopian cathedrals will have, what looks like hundreds of thousands of these little cherubs painted all over the ceiling. And it's very beautiful. And Work Arefaine and I actually had talked one time about trying to cover the ceiling downstairs with the cherubs. They're like, this is going to take us, this will be like the Sistine Chapel for us, but we can do this. But we didn't end up following through. But yeah, any picture you see of Ethiopian chapels, which of course the Ethiopian Christian tradition predates the Catholic Church, the oldest Christian tradition in the world, and a very good argument for a Black Jesus. And so it's that iconography that's very sacred. And there was one time when someone actually put graffiti on one of those cherubs, and we managed to track that person down and almost physically force them to pay the money to make the repairs. And then outside on the downstairs patio is another really important piece of artwork that was left over from the Blue Nile. And it's on the wall. So if you walk out the downstairs doors and look to your left, there's 4 faces that are painted on the wall. And they're put there by the same artist that painted the Lucy Sims mural that's on the parking deck.
Yeah.
And he also painted the giant snake that's down the bowling alley at Ruby's, and then painted the horse in Benny's Pizza. And he's a local guy named Andre Shank. He goes by Bombproof is his
I like that
artist name. Yeah, he's great and just an incredible friend of mine. He painted the downstairs for us here too. But he and I had an idea to do a kind of Ethiopian mural that was relative to a lot of important Ethiopian leaders, but also to family members of the Arefanes, which that part we didn't get to before the Blue Nile closed. But what's there now is the heads of Haile Selassie and Major General Kabidi, who his grandson is a friend of mine and lives, I think he's in Charlottesville right now, but him and his partner operate a cool little bartending operation called Mobile Go. And they do like weddings and stuff like that. But but that was part of the inspiration too, was that, we have these connections with these Ethiopian leaders, let's make a mural out of it. And so yeah, Selassie, Major General Kabidi, and then King Menelik II, who was king before Selassie, and then Prime Minister Zalawi, who was a more recent leader in Ethiopia. And that was a really special mural, and we loved it, and so we were happy to keep that here. And I love telling the story to people because they look at it, they see it all the time, and most people, just like anything else you see every day, you get so accustomed to it, and then it's just like, wait, why? What is that? Why is that there? And because it's a pretty cool story to tell for sure. How this kind of big Ethiopian imprint ends up in the valley in Virginia.
Yeah, in downtown Harrisonburg. That's I love that. I like the tie to the Ethiopian community and its imprint on our community. Yeah. That's good stuff. But what it really is. It is. What inspired you to call it the Golden Pony, though? Why the name Golden Pony?
So I just was thinking up, because I've worked in the restaurant industry most of my life, knowing how narrow the margins are and how difficult it is. And so I never really had planned on opening my own restaurant ever. When the Nile was closing, it was so, like a lot of people, because there was, tons of other people that had the same ideas as me, like, we got to keep this going or try and keep this going. And I think there was about a dozen different people vying for the lease after the Nile closed. But it was just like, I just felt like it was time to try and step up and do something about this cultural jewel that was about to be lost. And so I had no name in mind and just kind of started thinking and, going all over the place. And I'm sure I have somewhere written down a bunch of ridiculous names that I probably considered at one time. But I was just kind of laying in bed thinking one night. And, I'm a huge fan of the novel The Outsiders by Effie Hinton, who, wrote the book when she was a 16-year-old. And, the story, was a novel, but also made into a movie. I really identified with it as a kid because it was, about three brothers that grew up, kind of rough and tumble and, lacking in resources. And, this idea of like the rich versus the poor, I really felt that. And then the character Pony Boy, he's got his like tough credibility, but he's also kind of like writing a little poetry on the side. And like for me growing up, I was always into writing and poetry, and that's what I primarily studied in school. But it was something I just I hid from all of my friends. It was kind of I didn't feel like it was masculine enough or something. But obviously I got over that. But but I can see that in the movie and in the character of Pony Boy. And then as a middle school teacher, I would teach the book, and, just seeing the kind of transformation that it could create within children still, and most of my students were Lumbee Indians in Robeson County, North Carolina. And so that was a very unique space. And so for them to connect with this book that was out of a very different community than theirs was very telling too. And so it's just always been a very special story and narrative to me. And so I was thinking it'd be cool to have the slogan be "Stay Gold." And then, the name, it was just like kind of just words floating around in my head and kind of not wanting to make it like too heavy handed, like Outsiders reference. And so the phrase from the book is "Stay Gold, Pony Boy." And so I just kind of moved that around to the Golden Pony. And I was like, that sounds like on one hand, like a cool old tavern kind of name, and just like a classic place that's always been there. Yeah. And it sounds like a reference to the Outsiders. And then of course, just the culture of this place. I mean, it's just like, you can't find more outsider type people in any one place than work here or come here and hang out and see shows. It's just, there's such a wide variety of just orbits that are happening. We have Spanish night on Saturdays, and sometimes people that come on Spanish night will come in on a Wednesday when we have a metal show, and they're just like, this is so different from when I come here on Saturdays. But it's like, everybody kind of like cross pollinates, and so it's just kind of like being a flower in a field with a lot of different bee colonies buzzing around, and it makes for a lot more beautiful flowers in the field as well.
Ah, the poet in you came out in that answer. I love it. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I like the whole ties with the story and your background and your appreciation for multiple cultures and their influences on the community. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of all in the name. And the stay gold. I was going to ask about stay gold. Now you answered the question.
And in the book, that's where that comes from, is they're talking about a Robert Frost poem. And, it's nothing gold can stay is the line, basically saying that, nothing can stay young forever. Everything must die. Everything must, come to an end. And so when he says stay gold to his friend, as the one boy, Johnny, is dying, and he says, stay gold, pony boy. He's telling him to, keep his what some people might call naivete, keep your innocence, and, don't let the world tear you to shreds or make you into one of these other people, which is just a archetypal conversation or situation. I feel like among all human kids, it's like, you think you're going to be, you're like, we just got to stay like this forever. And, and everybody goes on to face all these different adversities with doing that. But the idea is just very pure and on point, to try and maintain the love of the world that you have as a child, and not be jaded by life and all of the things that beat you up in the time that you have on this earth.
I like that too so much. It's a message of, staying true to yourself and your youthfulness and your creativity and your spontaneity.
Mm-hmm. Lots of childishness going on at the Golden Pony, for sure.
For sure. And great food, we must mention.
And great food, yeah.
Yeah, you have a diverse menu that offers both comfort food and unique culinary creations. How do you all strike the balance between satisfying your customers' expectations and offering innovative dishes?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's definitely a struggle, and we learned that from the Blue Nile, even also because they have this wonderful Ethiopian food, but when you were striking out a path of your own, it's very hard sometimes to get people to come along with you, because in Harrisonburg, I think the oldest restaurant in Harrisonburg is Golden China, right over by 81. Yeah. So they've been here for a very long time, and they run an incredible operation. I go there for lunch with my friend Jeff Gwynn from the market down the street all the time, and they really are just a shining example of how a restaurant can like really go the distance. But now it's Chinese is everybody's familiar with Chinese food. Mexican food everybody's familiar with. We've even got a couple Puerto Rican spots and a Dominican spot, and so it's just like all these different foods are now a lot more commonplace in Harrisonburg, and whereas the Ethiopian, I think there's one place over on Reservoir Street where you can get some Ethiopian food, but it's still a pretty rarity. You go to DC and it's everywhere, but for us, doing something much more Americanized, it's a lot easier for us to just kind of meet people where they are, and have pizza and have burgers, but then still also kind of bring in these elements of other cultures and other things. We've got a lot of Mexican American staff. We've got our chef comes out of growing up in a Mennonite family, so he has a lot of knowledge of that kind of stuff, and the bartenders, they bring their own, it's kind of like in a lot of restaurants, the kitchen is the kitchen and the bar is the bar. But here, the bartenders and the cooks in the kitchen and the chef are all kind of contributing a lot of ideas and inspiration to a lot of what we do is like specials and things. But yeah, I mean, there's just, everything is just kind of always changing, and especially with the bar program and the cocktails, with the food, I think, we have some items that, or quite a few items that have been on the menu since we first opened. The Frita Kahlo is another like staff and customer favorite, with black beans and cheddar cheese and fried kale and a chipotle crema sauce on top. And it's just like, all of these very simple, kind of almost mundane ingredients. And when they come together, it's just kind of a special kind of magic. And so, having things that are fairly ordinary, like pizza and burgers, gives us a pretty easy platform to kind of meet people where they are and deliver something special, even if it's, the wings, we do regular wings, but then we also have a pineapple habanero sauce, or, we do the vegan wings, which is something we started doing probably like 6 or 7 years ago. But it's just fried cauliflower with a nice batter. And, just personally, I'm not a vegan or vegetarian. I do eat a lot of plant-based things, and we try to offer just as much plant-based options as we possibly can, because a lot of the people that work here are vegetarian, vegan. A lot of the people that come here are vegetarian, vegan. But I like the vegan wings that we have better than any chicken wings that I've ever eaten. So there's that too.
I'm gonna have to try
sometimes
those.
It's cool to expose people to things like that might otherwise seem ridiculous. If you just want chicken wings, and it's like, why would you ever eat these? But then you eat one, and it's just like, that's actually really good.
I'm gonna have to try those. You got piqued my interest on trying that dish for sure. You mentioned your chef. What else should the Laughers know about your chef, and what's your chef's name?
His name is Titus Shank, and he's just an incredible guy. He came to it. He was at the Chop House before he was here, and he was our second in command. And then our chef, I think he left. It's probably been about a year since he left, but he left, and so Titus was there to step in and fill that position, which we were really excited about because we all knew him really well, and he's just done an amazing job with the staff and with the food, and he's somebody that it's just he's a really special guy too. He kind of knows everybody. Like, I mean, you could probably find somebody in, Southern California on Facebook, and you would have no friends in common with them. But it's like, then there's Titus Shank. It's like, man, he knows everybody. And just a really, really good guy, and kind of encapsulate a lot of different aspects. With the staff at the Pony, we managed to keep people for a long time because I think they all understand that what we're doing here is bigger than just, any one thing. It's bigger than the food. It's bigger than the music. It's bigger than the space. It's bigger than making $1. We all love each other, and lots of us are artists and musicians and writers and, all of these different things. And, he's his art is his food, and, he's also just kind of a social butterfly in a way that everybody just, loves. And, he's just a good friend to have, and he's always helping people. And so, he fits right in. Yeah.
He's up to good things with your weekend brunches, and your staff is also with the happy hours and the cocktails. What should Laughers know about these things?
Well, the happy hours are great opportunities to come and try some of the cocktails, because the bartenders, they'll make a variety of different things, sweet drinks, sour drinks, spicy drinks, drinks that are $7, drinks that are $14, so happy hour is always a good opportunity. I feel like to go in and try some of the things that it's just like, I don't know if I want to spend $14 on a cocktail that I've never had, but and of course it's $14 just because of all of the different ingredients and things that go into it. And the bartenders feel like it's still, it's still worth getting out to the public, even if it is a little bit expensive, because when they do taste it, that they'll be amazed and happy with the outcome. And then, it's just a great time. It's, usually a little calmer of a time to come in and chat with the bartender. And certainly if you're interested in cocktails, our upstairs bartenders are really, really just the best that I've found around here for a long time. And, I've been tending bar in Harrisonburg for a long time. And I started tending bar in Harrisonburg at Ruby Tuesdays when it was attached to the mall. So I've come a long way.
You have.
And my bartenders here, they're incredible. They make a lot of the things that they use from scratch, or lots of fresh ingredients. If they decide they want a baseball shaped ice cube for a cocktail, like they will make it happen.
And you get a break on the drinks during happy hour, right?
So our happy hour pricing is kind of convoluted, but which is why you come in between 4 to 7 Monday through Friday, and you can kind of gather a lot more from the bartenders specifically. But mostly the specialty cocktails that we offer are discounted, and then we have appetizers that are $5 instead of 8, 10 or more. And so it's kind of, there's not like one easy way to describe the happy hour other than 4 to 7 Monday through Friday. And but it's a great opportunity to come and try, especially just some of these incredible cocktails that they're doing behind the bar up here.
Yes, there's a lot of those. I was noticing that looking at the cocktail menu. So I highly recommend that. And then you have the weekend brunches too on Saturday and Sunday. Tell us about those.
Yeah, especially this time of year with the outside patio being open, it's just a great space with the elm trees, just kind of a canopy over the entire patio. And the leaves are just, especially, in the spring, the leaves are just this really like highlighter green color. It just makes for a nice experience, and just the sound of the wind blowing in the leaves. And, it's a great space to enjoy the incredible brunch that we have. The shrimp and grits is like just out of this world. The biscuits are great. Cinnamon buns, Belgian waffles. We have a breakfast BLT that a lot of people love, and definitely a little something for anybody. We have grits, period, which is something you don't always find around here. I grew up eating a lot. Actually, the fastest meal I ever ate was before I would go to work as a teacher. I would have no time because I was going to grad school at the same time, and I would take a shot of dry grits and a glass of water, and I would shoot the grit, chug the water, and halfway to work, I would be full. But our grits come pre-cooked, so you don't have to do that. And then we have oatmeal, lots of great breakfast options, and it's a great space to hang out with friends and enjoy a mimosa or one of the other brunchy kinds of cocktails that we have. We make our own Bloody Mary mix. Definitely a good place to come for brunch on Saturday or Sunday from 9 to 2.
9 to 2. I have done the brunch, and all this is good, by the way, laughers. And all this talk about food and dining at the Pony is making me super hungry. So thankfully, I have some delicious snacks right here in the studio from Preposterous, Shenandoah Valley's only award-winning popcorn. You ever tried it, Paul?
many times. In fact, I think the last time I had it, one of the bartenders had got some and left it in the kitchen. And I was like, oh, let me try. I don't think I've tried this flavor yet. And had a couple pieces, then did some work, came back, and was like, well, they won't notice 2 more. And then I did some more work and came back. And then eventually, like, I had to fess up to him. I was like, hey, I tried some of your popcorn just so he's like, oh, you could, have as much as you want. It's like, these are things that you should not say to me. And I ended up eating all of his popcorn. I was like, I will buy you more. So I'm popcorn indebted to at least one person. So, probably gonna have to order some from Popster when I get off of here.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're going to send you some free popcorn as a thank you for being on the show, Paul. What do you think about that?
I think that's exciting.
It is exciting.
Interested in what flavor it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't know yet. It's going to be a surprise. I've got cinnamon right here. Mm-hmm. And I chose it specifically because it's a little spicy. And spicy makes me think of the pony.
Very, very spicy place. Especially on a Saturday with our Spanish DJs spinning Mexican music, Caribbean music, and the crowd that comes for that is just the coolest and best dancers in the area for sure. And I love Spanish now. I've always been a big fan of Spanish music, and grew up, a lot around in Spanish speaking communities in California and Arizona, and then even with restaurants too. I think got to give a shout out to my people at El Sol. It's like my favorite restaurant. It's just incredible Mexican food. But to this day, it's like when I go to a Mexican restaurant, it feels like fine dining, because when I was a kid, it was like if somebody had a birthday, we didn't go to restaurants much, but it's like if we did, we would go to the Mexican place and they would put a sombrero on your head and you would get a piñata when you left. And it was just like, man, this has got to be the most amazing experience you can have at a restaurant. And so, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Mexican culture specifically, but also, Puerto Rican culture and Caribbean culture. And, the people in this area, we've had a really big surge of Puerto Ricans to move to the area in the last couple of years. And it's just a great addition to the community here, this, vast international community that we kind of live among. If you have kids that go to public schools, you already know this. I have an 8-year-old and I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old. So, I've got quite a spread, but the schools are incredibly diverse here. And, we've got all of these different Spanish speaking communities looking for places to go on a Saturday night. And so, we started doing our Noches Latina before the pandemic with a friend of mine that's from Guatemala and is a DJ. And, it took a while. We started doing it upstairs and we would move the tables, and, sometimes some people would come and other times it would be kind of slow. And then it just started to be this thing where it was just like, we've got to really do something about this event because it is just outgrowing itself. And so we had to move it from upstairs to downstairs. And it's been great because every Saturday we're packed, whether the students are here or not. It's a great event that we do, and just a lot of fun people come out to. And whenever I go to a Mexican restaurant or like a Caribbean restaurant, it's like, chances are I will see somebody that comes to Pony on Saturdays, and oftentimes they will buy my food for me or something. It's really special to feel the love.
Yeah, that is the way to keep it spicy there for sure. They're bringing that spice every week. And we appreciate Pre-Popsterous Popcorn for bringing their cinnamon spicy popcorn to us among all their other flavors, Laughers. 3 things to know about them, and they are great, which is 1, their popcorn is made from kernels grown right here in the Shenandoah Valley. Yes. 2nd, their factory is 100% nut free. That means there's no nuts anywhere in their factory or production process. And 3rd, it's great for any gifting occasion, perfect for birthdays, anniversaries, or literally anything coming up. So get your preposterous today to make it a perfect gift. It doesn't require you to know anyone's shirt, shoe, or pant size.
Better than roses, too. You can eat them.
That's right. So Laughers orders yours today using code LAUGH15 to get a 15% discount. Visit prepopsterous.com, prepopsterous.com to see all their sweet and savory flavors beyond the cinnamon. Yum. That's good. I love what you shared there about the Spanish community. I've always wanted to learn Spanish. I need to make some new friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned a lot of Spanish from working with people in kitchens and restaurants. And then, we've got a lot of people working here that speak Spanish now too. Which is very helpful because on Saturday night, sometimes you need a little bit of Spanish. And, but I did some Spanish in college and high school, but mostly I worked with a lot of folks from Oaxaca, Mexico, when I worked at Ruby Tuesdays, and we would talk, and I just got really interested in speaking Spanish, and I've kind of been going through another renaissance with that here recently, and just watching shows in Spanish, and I noticed I started watching La Reina del Sur, and you watch a couple episodes and nothing but Spanish with no English subtitles. It's just like, man, I am rapidly learning or just freshening up my Spanish. It's crazy. So I've been doing more of that. And then, of course, I'm always listening to Spanish language music. Bad Bunny's a lot of fun, of course. But I really like a lot of old Mexican, like ranchera stuff. Irma Serrano, which we have a drink on our cocktail menu named after her. Vicente Fernandez, Chalino Sanchez, Lino Chavez. There's just so much incredible music. I think that's what got me interested in Spanish language music was you listen to all the stuff in English that you like, and then it's just like you just have a thirst for new music. Or I do. I have a thirst for new music all the time, and I started listening to Spanish music, and it was just like, man, this is a deep well. And there's just so many great songs and great musicians and new stuff and old stuff and folk stuff and rock stuff or cumbia.
Yeah.
So definitely made having a Spanish night here an easy yes.
Yeah, you are able to bring in so many amazing and different types of genres into the Pony. And you have done some upgrades with your stage and music venue. Can you share some of that with the Laughers as well, what you have available?
Yeah, well, we've, when the Nile was here, it started without a stage at all. So everybody just kind of played in the corner. But then eventually we got the stage put up, got a sound booth put up, and some speakers put in. And then, when the Pony came in, we just kind of took over all that stuff and then added a bunch more, upgraded the soundboard, and then upgraded it again later on. Put a bunch of upgrades into the lighting, which really made a big difference. Being able to record the shows, audio for artists. We've had bands that, they'll record their set and end up, putting out an album of Live at the Golden Pony, which is really cool. And we just have an archive of a lot of bands that have played here that we've recorded. And then on our website, there's some videos that you can see of some of their kind of older performances now, but all the audio was recorded on the soundboard. And so it's nice to have some of these abilities to just kind of have something a little extra for the bands to take home with them if they want, a recording of their set. It's very easy to do. And we do it a lot for them. And sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't, or maybe we don't even know if they do, but as a lot of us, are artists ourselves, we know how important it is to document and archive and to have some of these things. And so it's definitely been a really impactful thing, all the upgrades that we made. We've always staffed sound professionals. I know a little bit about sound production, but the guys that we work with, starting with Eric Shy, who was in the band Shenandoah Alley, and now he tours with Illiterate Light. And those two kind of came together here because Eric was our sound guy, and Illiterate Light, before they got signed to a big record label, were playing their first shows in this building, and Eric Shy was running sound for them, and eventually they were just like, we want to take you on the road with us. So we lost our best sound guy ever, but we were couldn't be happier to do so. And he made sure we had people here to cover the bases, but he was just one of those people that really shaped the soundscape of the room downstairs and made sure that we had everything that we would need, with sound panels, and we soundproofed the stage. We did lots of things before we reopened as the Golden Pony, and one of the biggest things though was the sound panels. The room down there is a lot of hard surfaces, and you just have all of these sound reflections off of hard surfaces that makes the equivalent of a blurry image for your ear. And when you have soft surfaces, especially where your ear would be picking things up, it makes everything that much more crisp. If you think about walking in the woods on a day when the woods are just covered with snow, you don't even really hear your footsteps, and the sound, everything is soft all around you. It's like you can speak and somebody just hears the crispest version of your voice. And it kind of, we created a scenario like that with the soundproofing, where there's these soft surfaces along the walls to help cut down on the sound reflections. Then of course, when there's 183 people in the room, that is the best soundproofing, because a bunch of soft bodies are absorbing all of those sounds instead of them bouncing around all over the place. And, you kind of hear them, coming off all of these different surfaces, which your ear just reads as muffled or, not very crisp.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. How do you select the musical acts that perform at the Pony? Are there any specific genres or criteria you consider mostly?
We're kind of open to everything. I mean, I think that's another thing that the Nile ushered in, that we continue, that, had a really big impact. And, when we came in, it looked, I think like this big success. And so it kind of looked like something a lot of other places would want to emulate. It's like, well, we want business, let's have shows like the Golden Pony is doing, even though, it's like having shows is, it's very difficult and time consuming. You need all this special stuff. And, and a lot of people don't want to go to a place where there's live music, and so it's like, there are a lot of sacrifices involved, but in our kind of controlling of the marketing of what we were doing here, I think we kind of planted a lot of seeds in other businesses downtown and around town, and made them want to have live music. Whereas before, a lot of them just didn't really have much, or if they did have it, it would just be kind of like a guy playing acoustic cover songs. And, but now you can see live shows at Pale Fire. You can see live shows at Restless Moons. You can see live shows of lots of different genres at Clementine, because it used to be kind of a little more middle of the road there than it is now. But we are, I feel like, notorious for having like the weirdest and all over the place kind of stuff. Like, people will come here and be like, this is insane. We had this band, they were called Street Sex, but SECTS is how it's spelled. And, they just pumped the place with so much fog that you can't believe that anybody would do that. And it was just, kind of terrifying in a way, but people love this band and they were great. And then they had a chainsaw without a blade on it, but they would run the chainsaw. And it was just, almost, for your average person, probably a horrifying experience. But it was the first time they played was for the Mac Rock Music Festival. And so we always kind of expect some real wild acts to come through for that. But, just lots of experimental stuff. And so some of the stuff chooses us too. Part of being in a location that a lot of different bands come through and tour, you're just going to keep getting asked to have shows there. We get emails, several times a day. It's like, hey, my name's this, I'm working with this band, or I'm in this band, and we're routing through the region on August 23rd. We've got a show in Richmond on the 22nd and another show in New York on the 25th. We want to play somewhere in between on the days in the middle. And so then, we kind of check and see, and sometimes, it's like, well, I think this is maybe not going to work. Cause, obviously we don't want to have a show that nobody comes to, or, we want to have enough time to plan it out. And, we'll need local bands to be on the bill to help get people to come out. Cause a lot of the bands that are just touring through the country, a lot of people haven't heard of. And even if they have, they're not really super keen to go see live unless maybe there's a local connection, like a local band they're friends in, and they'll come to see that, and then they'll be exposed to this other music. And then we can help these traveling touring musicians get to the next stop, and hopefully make a little bit of money and have a good time. We don't pay the most in terms of money just because, we're a small room, but the bands that play here just, absolutely love us. And, that's one thing we hear all the time from the touring bands is, we wish there was a Golden Pony in every single town in America, because it would make having shows everywhere so much easier. So we really try to get them with the hospitality and make them feel welcome and appreciated. And then that, keeps them coming back. And, I'll see a t-shirt pop up on, somebody's social media, or, sometimes my friends, they'll send me stuff. They're like, dude, I'm in Napa Valley, California right now. This happened the other day. He's like, I'm in Napa Valley, California right now. Look at the hat this lady is wearing. Just some random lady I've never seen before in my life wearing a Golden Pony hat at some wine festival in Napa Valley. And so, we have, out of everywhere in Harrisonburg, we just have this wide range of people that know about us, because all of these musicians have toured through here. And so, once you start talking about music with musicians and live music, there's only so many places on the East Coast up and down that do shows like we do. And so when you find the people that play those kinds of shows, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, pretty much. Lots of people know about this place, or have been here, or have toured through here, or know a band that has. And so it gives us this, interesting kind of relevance that, isn't something that we can capitalize on financially, because these are people that live too far to even come here a lot of times. But it certainly elevates the name and the brand to something that, other bands want to come and play through. So when they're building their tours, this is one of the places that they look at, and they'll contact us, or their agents will contact us. And then other times, it'll be a band that we know that this band will do really well here. We had Baroness come through recently on a $60 ticket per person. So it was, the most expensive show we've ever put on, because they're a really big band, and, they got to get what they're worth. And we sold it out and paid them what they were worth. And it was a great experience putting that show together. And our other talent buyer, other than myself, Jeff Snow, is a really good friend of mine. And he's just, his passion is bringing the biggest artists that he can possibly bring to this tiny little room that we have. And, we've had people like Riff Raff. I don't know if you're familiar with him. 70s hard rock bands, like Captain Beyond, just wild and crazy things for people that know live music and appreciate some of the kind of like level that we can plug into in a room this size. And so it's one of the best things about what we do is when we announce a show that we know everybody's going to be really excited about and it's going to sell out immediately. It's just a really good feeling, it's just like whatever neurotransmitters get released into the blood at that time. They're like the primo ones, very rewarding. And, big reason why we do it.
Yeah, that is one of the unique things I think about our community. And you know a heck of a lot more about music than I do. But I do see that there is a large music scene in our community. So much so, you even mentioned it a little earlier about Mac Rock. And Mac Rock, I think, is, I want to say in its 20th year. Is that right? Or something like that?
I think it's more than that even.
Probably.
I'm not sure because it was affiliated with JMU for a time and then it was dropped by JMU and then, it was kept alive by local people. But yeah, I feel like it's probably maybe like 25, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for laughers that may never have heard the term Mac Rock, can you share what that is?
Yeah, well, it stands for Mid-Atlantic Conference. That's what the MAC stands for. And it comes from a time when college radio was like a really big thing. Imagine back in the 90s, college radio, the stuff you could hear on college radio was just like, man, this is special. This is cool. This is unique. This is like underground. That's the kind of stuff that you would hear on college radio. And so there were a couple of different college radio music festivals and Mac Rock, was called Mac Rock because it's the mid-Atlantic region. And JMU's college radio station, WXJM, was the host of the show. And so all the DJs, would kind of work together and book all these shows. They booked really big bands when JMU was giving it a big budget to spend. Really big bands would come through and play like Fugazi. That was, when I had the first year that I lived up here in 2001, I remember I saw Fugazi was coming to JMU and was just, blown away and went and saw them at that show. And it was incredible. But then after JMU dropped Mac Rock, it became a much smaller budget to work off of. And, but, still lots of incredible bands came through. Elliott Smith, I think a lot of people are familiar with him. He played Mac Rock one year at the Artful Dodger. Lots of big bands. There's so many bands that have played in Harrisonburg that I think, I wish there was like a list somewhere, like in City Hall. Like, these are bands that have played Harrisonburg. And the one thing I get a lot is, of course, we're very close to Charlottesville, where Dave Matthews is from. And he is someone who played an acoustic show here when it was a restaurant called Joker's.
Really?
So before the Blue Nile, there was like a Caribbean spot here. And then before that was this place called Joker's that was here in the 90s. And then before that, it was a place called Valentino's. And before that, it was a place called The Famous. The florist next door to us, Shelby, she just recently sold the business, but she'd been here for like 50 some years. So she's like, was this incredible resource for everything. And she told me all about all the different restaurants that had been here before. But it was a Greyhound bus station.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of people will remind me that Dave Matthews played here. Especially if you're in like the 45 to 55 age range, like people are like, I saw Dave Matthews there.
Tip to the cap right there.
Yeah. And like so many other, stories like that, I'm sure there wasn't even that many people here. Once a band gets big, then they just stop playing places like this. So it's like, that's what has always drawn me to the venue. Because before I even worked at the Blue Nile, I was a huge fan of the Blue Nile, a patron of the Blue Nile. And you just come to shows and discover bands that you probably would never hear of otherwise. And then you see them live and you just have this visceral response they've become a part of your life because you've seen them perform this music live. And so, you buy a CD and you might listen to that CD a trillion times. You might listen to it 2 times, but it's like, it just becomes like a figment of your imagination in a way that's special. And then when you see one of those bands, go from, the kind of band that just plays small rooms like this one to one that's, playing arenas or much larger venues, like a Literate Light has done, that makes it even more special. And it's just kind of like you're mining for gold in a way, and going out and seeing, there's nothing I love more than going to see a live show of a band whose music I've never even heard before. I think that's the most exciting thing to do with your time and your life. And, as somebody that appreciates art and the arts, I like that sense of discovery. I think a lot of people unfortunately want to go and see stuff that they already know and that they're familiar with. And I kind of go against that grain. And I think a lot of people that really appreciate live music do that as well, because, there's some genres of music that I don't really ever find myself listening to in my car, at my house, but seeing it live is just such a different experience that, it can really, anything can take me live. It doesn't mean I'll listen to it at any point later, but it's like, you can just see what someone's doing, what they're working towards, what they're trying to create. And to me, that's really fascinating. As somebody that likes to create things themselves, it's like seeing how people make stuff, and having them do it right in front of you in real time. I mean, that's what's so magical about music in general. And certainly just live music, you get to see that process like happening right in front of you. And it's really special. And it's just, there's a bond that happens between you and the other people there, between you and the band. And, it's really special.
Yes, live art is a unique experience that you only get in that show, in that moment, in that room with those artists. So I can identify as a comedian with that experience. It's a one-of-a-kind experience for sure. And you are a man who has many talents and an interest in fostering the growth of the vibrant scene here in our community when it comes to the arts, most notably hip hop and local bands, and also Super Great, the film festival. I would love if you could speak on these different areas where you are a part of fostering that growth in our scene here.
Yeah. So, when I was working at the Art Dodger, coordinating all of their cultural events, I started a show called Skating Worshippers, which is a play off of it's pretty obvious, I think, but, and, somebody that grew up skateboarding myself, and the culture of skateboarding being what it is and so vibrant and creative, I thought, let's make a show about all skateboard art. So art that's made by people that skate, and art on skateboards, and, just everything related to skateboarding culture. And the industry of skateboarding is a really interesting one where, you can contact these very famous people and they'll respond, they'll send you stuff. And so we did, just about, we started that in 2009. And then once I left the Dodger, I took it to the Nile. And then once the Nile was gone, we did it at Brothers Brewing. They hosted it one year, which was awesome. And then we've done it at the Pony since then. And in doing that event, my good friend Tim Estep and I started having conversations about doing a film festival event that was kind of similar to Rock Lotto, if you've heard of that. It's another great event that happens here where everybody pretty much puts their name in a hat that wants to be in a band. And the process works like this. You put your name in the hat, all the names are drawn out, and these 5 people are a band, these 5 people are a band, these 5 people are a band, and it could be anybody, and they could all be people that play the same instrument. And then those people go off and they write 5 songs, and practice 5 songs or about 5 songs. And then we have a show like a month, 2 months later where they perform all of those. And so everything's brand new. Nobody's expecting anything to be polished. But all of these people have contributed to this creative process together as these, 5 little bands that'll all perform on one night. And it just creates a really cool dynamic. You meet people that once you create with another person, whether it's visual art, music, or, a film, you are just, there's an understanding and appreciation that happens. It's just, it's really special. And, so that's kind of what Rock Lotto created. And, we had witnessed that, and Tim and I talked about doing something similar with a film format. And we're both, because of my interest in skateboarding growing up, half of that culture is documenting the process with photography, with film. And so that's what got me into photography, my lifelong passion with photography and film. And Tim and I were both interested in Super 8 film in particular, because it's just a really cool format. The cameras are still out there. They're like little tanks that will just outlive us all, apparently. Same thing with the film, and so the cameras that we're using are 30 plus years old. We've refurbished them and kept them up, and we don't expect people to have Super 8 film cameras. So we provide everybody with cameras, with film, and then we do little training sessions with everybody. So the first year we did it, I think we ended up with about 17 films out of maybe like 20 some that were attempted. Because sometimes, because you're working with film, you can have a roll that comes back and the camera malfunctioned or something malfunctioned, and all of the work that you put into that roll of film is just straight out the door.
Yeah.
And the first year there was a guy who he pushed a car off of a cliff.
Oh my gosh.
And got it on Super 8.
Holy. Oh my
and so when we got the film back, we were like, oh man, so-and-so's roll came back black. It's like, God, it's gonna be such a film. We were like, well, I think he just kind of like did whatever, he I don't think he was taking it very serious. And then we talked to him, and he was just like, so like just broken by the fact that the film didn't come back. And then he shared with us, he was like, I even pushed a car off the cliff.
Oh my God.
Heartbreaking, but that's the name of the game sometimes. And so the stakes are high, and with Super 8, it's kind of like comparable to haiku. It's like the form is like a collaborator itself. So what you have to do to work with that form is going to have to create the content that comes out of it. And so it's almost like, you end up doing things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. And it's an amazing feeling to collaborate with the medium itself. And a lot of people, they've never shot Super 8 film in their life. And so it's just a big experimental kind of like have fun with film kind of event. And then nobody sees their films until the night of the film festival. And so if you shot a film with, all your friends and you guys scheduled and you put in the time, and you have to shoot everything in order because there's no editing. So if you have a shot in Elkton and then a shot in downtown Harrisonburg, and then it goes back to a shot in Elkton, you have to go back and forth between those places with the camera to shoot those scenes. And so it makes it challenging. And then when you actually, go to the festival, everybody is seeing their films for the first time. So the excitement is just really, really high. And the first year we did it, just sold out the theater. It was crazy. And then we were like, well, next year we'll do 2 nights. And then so we did 2 nights and then sold it out. And we did it up until COVID. And we had to cancel because of COVID, obviously. And we haven't brought it back yet, but, it's totally in the works. We just haven't found the right time to bring it back yet. But just, 300 something films made on Super 8 cameras in Harrisonburg or around Harrisonburg over, the span of a decade is just kind of crazy to think about. And the films that people made, I mean, some of them, you would just think like, surely something must be, there's no way somebody could do that on a Super 8 film, but people find all these creative ways to do the things that they want. And one of the beautiful things, getting back to this idea of like innocence and naivete, one of the best things about Super 8 filmmaking, when you know nothing about it, it's like you just kind of go for broke. You have this great idea. It's like, well, I want to make this film. And you know so little about the format that you don't know how insanely difficult that's going to be. But you get so inspired in the first place that it's like you commit to doing something that if you knew how hard it was going to be, you would never do it. And even to your question about, what I would tell my earlier self about the restaurant business or about the Golden Pony, it's like, whatever I would share with it, it might be enough to convince me not to do it at all, because it's like so difficult, which is why, you really have to love to do this kind of stuff if you're going to do it, because it's not going to be easy. And, but at the end of the day, here I find myself sitting in this, wonderful space that I've curated all these years with the help of all these other people. And, now I can say it's worth it. But if I had to go through all that again, it would be something I would really have to reflect upon. And similarly with the film festival, people make films that, they commit to doing something that's so tremendously difficult, but they don't even know better. So they just start doing it. And then they're like, well, I've already started, so now I got to finish, because a lot of people don't make animated films, where they're drawing out different scenes, and every 18 still pictures is a second of video. So that's like, I think it's like 3,500 individual pictures on a single cartridge of Super 8, because it's only 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So all the films are that length or shorter. And, it's just terribly tedious. But, when you see the results, it's just like, that is amazing. And again, when you work on things with other people creatively and have something to show for it, and then there's all these other people that have shared in the same creative process as you. So it's just a really big kind of creative Christmas time. And then we do awards, and, Elliot Downs, who's just my favorite local artist, he owns the record store on Water Street. He would always make these really cool awards out of old cameras that were broken. So if a camera can no longer be fixed or something, we retire it to becoming an award for one of the filmmakers.
Yeah.
And just a really, really special time and event. And definitely looking forward to getting back to it here, in the next year or so.
Coming back. I love to hear that. So back to the Golden Pony, what are future plans for the pony? Are there upcoming expansions or other things we can look forward to?
We don't really have any expansion plans. I mean, we're kind of limited with the building that we're in, unless we, moved to a different location, which, we don't have any plans of that now. It would certainly be interesting to consider, but also there's so much history in this building specifically that it's hard to imagine doing this anywhere else. But at the same time, you never know what might happen. And, I wish we did have a Golden Pony in every town to do this. And, I wouldn't even want to profit off of it. I just think it would be a great thing for the world to have places like this in more than places than just Harrisonburg, because we need a place to have for people to create and present their art and spend time together and, not feel judged or not feel unwelcome. And, I think we're a shining example of what happens when you do those things, in today's world and stuff. We have a lot of issues with identity and politics and, just the shared history of this country, that, we really have a lot of stuff to ruminate on. And, when you come to a place like this, where you just see all these different kinds of people getting together, doing things together, interacting, sharing culture, it's just, it really shows you why diversity is a good thing. It's not something you should do just because it's like fashionable. It's like it works. People need other people. We need other examples of how to do this and that. Just back to the example of the Arefaine's, they came from Ethiopia to have this massive impact on the live music scene in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Like nobody would have ever predicted that, but because of the impression of their culture on them, and just how, Ethiopian culture is massive in world history. But, just that openness to creativity and creation, and art, it might have been in Harrisonburg in other ways, but in that particular way, it really didn't seem like it was here until they came and created the Blue Nile and created this space where all these bands could play. And then from there, it was just an explosion or a blossoming of all of these different types of music and all of these different people. And then, you go and you see a band that's making this weird music. It's like, well, if they're making music and it's, I really like that, I'm going to go, I feel inspired to go get in a band myself, even though I can't even hardly play a guitar. I can't sing a tune,
mm-hmm.
but people will still start bands, not being able to make music. And then, a couple months later, you'll see them and be like, that's actually a really good band. Like, I can't believe how amazing that sounds, because when you put the creative effort into it, really, even not being able to play instruments is, not a deal breaker. You can figure that out along the way. And I've seen people do it. And it takes that level of inspiration that only comes when you see other people doing something, just like with Super Great. When you see other people making these films, after that first year, the next year, everybody's like, dude, after I saw those films, I was like, this is something I want to do. And then, the next year we had more than twice the number of films submitted. And, it's just seeding the community and giving people a reason to dream and to think about making stuff. And people that are dreaming and making stuff are just the nicest people. Their mental well-being is more stable, and it's like, it's just a noticeable difference. And so we're, of course, very happy to facilitate anything remotely close to that. So we're happy to be here doing this. And same thing with Super Great. It was always just such an honor and a pleasure to facilitate something that was so meaningful for so many different people, and was a big reason why, I was able to succeed with this space, because I had a lot of people in the community that I knew that were willing to back me. Because, before I even announced that we had signed the lease for this building, Valerie Smith from Larkin Arts helped me put together a crowdfunding campaign. And so that when we announced that we were going to open, or that I was going to open the Golden Pony, I had this crowdfunding campaign to do it with. And so it was just like immediately $10,000 in 24 hours was donated.
Wow,
and then over the course of the next 30 days, it got another 20,000. And so, that was a big chunk to start the business with. We certainly needed more than that, and we got loans to do it with, but that was almost worth its weight in marketing, because, we raised all this money and we did it in front of everyone. And it was just like this big thing that had a huge impact on everybody, and everybody saw. And so it was like, everybody was just waiting for us to open by the time we actually opened. And then it was just, an explosion. And it's been great ever since.
It has been great. Well, as we wrap up here, I think people need to find you if they haven't found you yet. So how
Mm-hmm.
would they connect with you and the Golden Pony via website, social media, or otherwise? Can you share that information?
Yeah. Well, we're on Instagram as Golden Pony VA, and the website is goldenponyva.com. Facebook, we're on as well, and we're active on all of those platforms. Twitter as well, or come to 181 North Main Street in downtown Harrisonburg, Virginia, and see us. Yeah, we would love to see anybody and everybody, and we've got a lot of stuff to offer, so definitely worth checking us out.
Yes, laughers, do check them out. And thank you, Paul, for joining us today and sharing your insights and part of your story about the Golden Pony and your journey as a business owner, and chatting. It up with me about all things the Golden Pony today. I'm excited. We're excited to hear your stories today and learn more about the incredible work you've been doing for our community here in Harrisonburg. I definitely have enjoyed our time together, and I can't wait for my next visit to the pony. So thanks again for coming on the show. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thanks again. Me. You bet. You bet. And Laughers, be sure to visit their website at goldenponyva.com, goldenponyva.com, to check them out and get more information on their American cuisine offerings, weekend brunches, happy hours, and upcoming live music and DJ shows. Don't forget that Spanish night on Saturday, y'all. And better yet, visit them in person at 181 North Main Street in downtown Harrisonburg. And lastly, and most importantly, thanks for tuning in, Laughers. Out of all the podcasts out there, you picked us, and we think that's pretty darn special, just like you. Until next time, keep smiling. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by X2 Comedy. We'll be dropping a new podcast every Wednesday, so check back for another uplifting episode. Come to an X2 Comedy show or let us bring one to you. To find out more, head to x2comedy.com. Be sure to share this podcast with a friend, and until next time, cheers.